Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode we're going to do a full bulkhead removal on our Puma pickup, and that'll get us ready to do the full conversion into the station wagon. So as you saw in a previous episode when we actually took the cab off the pickup and replaced it with the hardtop, that was for the drive all the way back to Liverpool. That's now come off and we're going to start doing some work inside the vehicle. First thing is removing the bulkhead. Now, this isn't particularly difficult, this job, but it is a little bit nerve-wracking because, you know, you are cutting some major hardware out of your vehicle. And, you know, if you've got a modern vehicle or quite an expensive, valuable vehicle like this one, you don't want to be making mistakes. I'm going to be using a combination of cutting discs on my grinder and also a reciprocating saw. I'm not sure how good the blades are on the reciprocating saw, so we'll see. But I'd like to do everything with the grinder disc if I can. I've got a bit more control, I think, over that. Now, essentially, we have to first remove the top bulkhead capping. So these rivets all have to be drilled out and that'll just slide off. And then you'll see, and I'll do a close-up in a moment, there's a seam that runs over these wheel arch boxes, and we have to cut as close to that seam as possible. And that seam will always remain, and it's a bit of an ugly eyesore that you do get on this build, and I think we're going to look at addressing how we can tidy that up and make it look nice. Now, we are going to be putting the bulkhead removal bar in today, but it's going to have to come out again when we do the full respray, and I'm probably going to have it painted to match, so it should all look really nice, matching the interior and exterior colour on all the hardware. So let's get stuck in. I'm going to start cutting this now. I'll just show you a close-up. You can see here where we've got all our rivets coming through. That is the sort of the flange, if you like, that we have to retain because that mates the body to the front seat box. So that's all going to stay. So what we've got to do is actually cut just above this line. Now in the instructions it actually tells you to cut all the way along there, and across the top right to the edge. Now that is very close to the outside skin. So what I'm going to do differently is I'm going to remove the top capping first, and then I'm going to cut straight down here to our seam, cut across. That main panel will then come out because I'll go across all the bottom as well, and then I can start working in here. I'll have more room and I'll be able to work at it a bit neater, because what I don't want to do is go too close in there and go into the body, because it's only a thin skin and it won't be any good. I've got a 5.5 on here because I don't need to save any of the holes for new rivets. Just make this job a bit quicker. Here we go. We still have, there's a support plate in here which has to come out. There we go, and that's what I was going to save. So I don't think we need it, but it makes my job cutting easier anyway. You can see the limitations obviously with the grinding disc getting into these tight corners, so that's why I'm going to use the reciprocating saw just for those corners. But the really nice thing about using one of these is this is basically almost the exact size you need to keep it off that seam. So I'm now going to go in and do the bottom. I wonder if, let me just do a test cut. Okay, now once again, this, I'm lucky, this is exactly the right height. So as long as I keep it on the floor, I should be able to do a nice straight cut all the way along. Now, so you can see here, we're nice and loose there. This is the join that I've not quite made, same at the bottom there. So let's just get those last little corners out now with the reciprocating saw. There we go. And I can also probably take the corner off that. Right, so we're not done cutting just yet. We've still got this panel in here. Now it's, I need to cut it as much as I can up to that edge, and then it's bonded to the outer panel. So we did say once we've got all this out of the way, it should be easier to cut into here, which it is. Don't think I'm going to get any closer than that. So we're coming in from the cab. Now in here you can just see there's two little spot welds there and there. Now we've got to drill those off. Now there's an extra plate behind them, so hopefully if we just take the immediate material off this piece of metal and we don't go through this, we won't damage the panel behind it. And then we should just have glue to deal with, so let's do that. I've got a 10 here because I can't go in too deep, and I've got to make sure that I go get all the spot weld area out. So I've tried not to go too deep. We're okay over here. I've gone through, I think, the material now. With any luck, if I can get something behind this top piece and between that and this, I might be able to prise that open. Here again, I've used this little chisel and just tapped it behind. This should be a bit more, yeah, flexible. A bit more chiseling, and now this piece has come away. Again, makes it better for me. The piece that you're really going to struggle with, I think the hardest part of this removal is getting this flap here cut. Now it's not bonded onto this, but you can't really get anything behind it to pull it forwards because you're going to damage the outside panel, and that is our outer skin. If I pull that, it's coming out a touch. Get my pliers on there and pull it out. That'll give us a bit more manipulation to get things out. Also want to try and bend this down and out. Basically try and get as much of these reinforcement sections away from the body. This is fairly sturdy, this is steel at the top here, so we can work against that. That's all free. So this is the seam. I'm just going to get that off now. So hopefully you can see here we've got the same affair. So I'm just going to twist that down a bit, trim it. There we go. Let's get rid of all this nastiness here. There's a little edge just here, so I want to make that flat, which I can do easily enough. So we're not quite done cutting yet. We've actually got to trim this piece now that extended from obviously these side cappings down into the bulkhead. How you trim this is really up to you. Basically the only bit you're going to need is that bit there for the actual body to sit on. So you don't really need any of this. It doesn't really serve a purpose, but I think we'll just lose minimal and try and make it a nice shape. I think that's a fairly nice curve. Okay, so now we're in a good position to offer up our support bar and then work out which way it goes round and then sort of get our supports positioned. And the nice thing about this is what you can do is put your supports upside down to mark where you need to put the holes, and then you're all good to go. You've got your center point here, and then you've got a small rivet point there and a recessed rivet point, and that recessed rivet point is what we've got to drill out. You can see it's recessed, and that's to 10.5. I can see that there's two little rubber bungs there, and I'm guessing they mount onto that, so I'm thinking it goes this way. Nice. Okay, that looks perfect. Now what's funny about this next bit is it kind of is asking you to guess where things go. Work it out for yourself, it says. So we've got two brackets, they are handed. Your support bracket actually goes quite, don't get confused with this hole thinking it lines up with this big hole here, because it doesn't. That's what I just did. So it goes just behind your seatbelt reel, and this plate sits against the body. So you can see the three holes go to the inside of the vehicle. That will help you line it up, and this has to be angled to go over this tube here. And then you've got a threaded part here, and that's going to line up with the hole we've just drilled out. So you would put that inside there like that. Once you've worked out where this goes and which side it goes on, it says take the bracket from the opposite side and lay it over the top as a mirror image for where you're going to put your holes. Just get a random bolt, you can get one out of the pack, and actually, oh that's okay, right, so I'm going to put that in there just to hold it in place because it keeps shifting about. There, I'm happy with that. And we should be able to drop our correct bracket in place, and they should all line up, and they do. You need to fit these brackets with these panhead bolts. So not the gold ones, which have got a flanged head, but these domed head, which is a panhead bolt. Right, so that's good in on there, and then obviously it's going to ask us to mark these and drill these out in a minute. Don't think I'm going to be able to get to the lower one because the seat belt roll, I think the seat belt is in the way, so that might have to come out. So I'm doing the back, the outer ones first, because this is quite flimsy at the front and it will just make it bend out of shape. So you can see here I just need to take these out because I think we're going to struggle to get the holes in for the bracket on that box with them in place. Now I'm going to offer this bar up gently. I don't think it's that easy. There we go. Right. And then it wants us to just temporarily, so loosely, just get everything buttoned up. Okay, with everything loosened off, these bolts loosened off, although it's in place, I'm really happy with it, and it even lines up nicely on the floor, but this is still off, so it's giving me a bit of movement, so I can move it to where I need it, which is where it is now, and I'm going to get those holes, put the plate on before I button everything up. Now obviously if you are not painting your vehicle, you'll have to get all those treated with a bit of paint just to make sure that they don't corrode. If we were doing this as a permanent fix, I'd be putting some YRM barrier foam on there between the steel and the aluminium, but we're obviously just getting it in place now before we do the paint. So if I'm honest, I think you should take this out, drill those holes bigger. Well, and so that's what we're going to do, because it's just pointless otherwise. Now there's no point going crazy tight at the moment because it's all coming undone again. we are. And we're in. Right, so not a hard job, but it takes a bit of time, a bit of patience, because it's just loosening things off to get everything jigged into the right place. Now, I'm really happy with the way it's fitted. The bulkhead bar is actually rubbing on the corners, which won't have helped, and that is probably why, looking at it, it's not sitting back far enough. I'm going to show you that in detail. The beauty of these videos is that so you don't make the mistakes I've made, and you can just go straight in and do it all perfectly. And I have made a little mistake here, and I'm going to show you what that is now. So if you remember when we cut the corners, can you see down here? That is actually touching. So that needs to be not touching. And on here it's even worse because it's actually bending the skin. So, two things we could do. We could knock it back, hammer it back, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave the flange on there. Or you could cut it even tighter, but I don't want to do that. So, I'm going to loosen these off once again. And then what that'll mean is, hopefully, this will come back a little bit, and I'll be able to get that lined up with the holes better, because we have to drill through there and fit our anchor plates. I think that was why I was struggling to get this close enough, because it was fighting against the actual body of the vehicle. And then now the bar goes in a treat. So what we're trying to do now is line these holes up, and you can see that is pretty good. I don't think you'd get it much better than that. So we've got to drill some big holes. Now, if we've done things right, which is unlikely, these plates should fit. We are under the car. Now, those plates, I don't know how they're supposed to fit, because there's a massive structural bracket here right next to that, so you can't get the plate on there, so they are completely and utterly useless. I've just got massive bolts, that's all we've got for now, but obviously we are going to be refitting this after it's painted, so these are temporary, but I'll get them fitted and I'll show you what I've done. So there's where we've tidied up the body, and you can just see down here where we've cleaned up that piece, and this is the flange that I think we're going to lose. I don't really like that. I want to trim that off completely, and I think that'll be a much nicer look. Now, I did film a whole outro just talking about what I thought, but unfortunately the microphone decided not to work. So as you can see here, let me chat away to the camera. But essentially, what I was saying is, the only thing I would change, there's a few little things that I don't like about this kit, and the main one is the hardware. It's absolutely terrible. I really don't think it's very good quality, the nuts and bolts. So get yourself some decent stainless nuts and bolts and you'll do a much nicer job. But apart from that, hardware aside and just those brackets, a really nice addition. It's a shame you have to take the roof off your vehicle. That is the only downside, I think. But at the end of the day, if you're doing a little bit of a, you know, if you're going to be taking the roof off to do that, it gives you a chance to inspect your cappings, replace any that might need doing, give it a clean up, make sure everything's nice and clean. You might have some repairs to do around that area. So it's a job to sort of just work out what you're going to do when you've got that roof off, in case there's anything else you can do as well. A load of different bits and pieces to go in, but pretty much this is going into paint in the next couple of weeks. So we might be on the Discovery for a little bit, or even hopefully we'll be on the 110 project vehicle if I can get that up here in time. So thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it. Give us a thumbs up if you did. Please do subscribe. I'm trying to get to 40,000. It's a real milestone for me. 40,000 subscribers would be amazing. Even if you only subscribe for a little bit, it would be so good. So hit the subscribe button and I'll catch you on the next one.